And we are live. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to this forum on prioritizing youth participation and putting young people at the forefront of policy reform in Africa. My name is Dimpho Legeo. I'm a media professional working in youth development, and I'm thrilled to be leading today's conversation. I'm excited not only because I'll be joined by some of my favorite young people who are changing the narrative about what it means to be young and a leader, but also because today we're really trying to explore the practical ways that young people can become the drivers of policy and decision making on the continent. I would like to use this opportunity to invite you to be a part of the conversation by sending us any questions and comments, either using the chat box or by following us on social media. I know we're available on Twitter and Facebook at the Belnasa Youth Forum. At the center of today's conversation is really the young voices of Africans, and I'd implore you to make sure that yours is one of them. Before we get started, I would like to bring to your attention that today's keynote speaker will not be available to join us. Honorable Patience Masuwa has sent her apology and made a promise, though, to be a part of this kind of session in the future. But do stay tuned because we still have some informative presentations from the Belnasa Youth Forum, as well as a robust panel discussion and an opportunity for you to be part of the World Bank Youth Summit 2023. To kick us off, we'll be hearing from Ms. Marie-Francois Marinelli, the Country Director for South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, and Eswatini at the World Bank. Ms. Marinelli will deliver the official opening remarks and really shed a light on the vital role of young people in achieving even the bank's objectives. She will be helping us explore how this forum is empowering young people to shape development in their countries. She will also give us invaluable insights into how young people can begin to drive practical change in their communities. Please do help me welcome her and extend a very warm welcome to Ms. Marie-Francois Marinelli. The virtual stage is now yours.
Thank you very much, Dimpho, for this warm opening. I'm always excited to be with you, and let me warmly welcome all the youth of Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Namibia, and South Africa. I'm so excited to see that this Belnasa Forum is shaping up. I think that it's probably the third session of it. And particularly today, as you have indicated, Dimpho, it's about fostering policy solutions for the future of the continent. And when we talk about the future of the continent, we talk about the youth of the continent. So let me first by saying how it is important to have the youth included in this agenda. As you know, our main vision and objective, the World Bank Group, is reducing extreme poverty, and promoting fostering shared prosperity, meaning that we want to see a large share of the population benefited from the wealth and of the income that is achieved by a country. And as you know, this is very consistent with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So we are all aspiring at improving the conditions of the people. The reason why it is so important to have the youth as part of this dialogue, and I'm looking at my numbers, I don't know if you're aware that 68% of the population of Botswana between age of 0 to 34 is the proportion, of the population between 0 and 34 is 68% for Botswana. When we go to Eswatini, it's even higher, 72%. Then when we go to Lesotho, 71%, and then South Africa, 63%, a little bit lower. That means that you are part of the solution, your number matters, and you have to be prepared to contribute, towards this reduction of extreme poverty, and of course, fostering broader wealth broader, welfare for the population of the continent and certainly for our countries, and you are the bulk of it. So you have a say into it. Let me add, a couple of numbers if we go beyond Southern Africa to look at the continent as a whole. McKinsey will be issuing in the coming weeks a report looking at the long-term outlook for the continent. And basically what the report says is that by 2050, there will be almost 600 million of the world workforce will be from the continent. Because, in other continents, we have an aging population. So that means that the youth, again, are the ones that are coming on stream. And by 2030, 42% of the world youth population will be African. So again, it means that this matters from the continent, and we want to ensure that all youth participate in the definition of the policy agendas that will shape the future of the continent and the workforce that matter. It's so important because we know that the globe, the world is facing multiple crises at the moment. We are coming out of the COVID, which was unprecedented, pandemic that nobody expected it. After that, now we have a war in Eastern Europe that is affecting and disrupting the globe in a manner that we were not expecting. And of course, we have the climate change that is becoming essentially part of development. So all these multiple crises will require appropriate solutions, appropriate policies. And again, the youth have to be part of it. So now the question is that, how do you make sure that you are prepared to participate? First of all, you need to have the proper platform to make your voice and your ideas and your views heard. And this is the purpose of Belnasa. But in addition to providing the platform for you to speak up, it's also a platform to have the tools to debate about these critical issues so that you come up with solutions that are meaningful, that are evidence-based, that are well thought through. And again, we think that the youth have to be part of that. So I am extremely excited about this idea of being able to push this movement. If anything, we would like that within the policy agenda, the way the World Bank defines its program, that we are part of it, and we make a point each time that we develop a new strategy, that we have not only consultation, of course, with the government, that is our official counterpart, but we also have, among the other stakeholders, the private sector, the civil society, we want to have a particular engagement with the youth. And of course, as we know that one of the key challenges for the youth is job creation, it's also the capacity for you to be able to be your own employer. And I am so happy that Matsi is on this platform because she has been at the forefront of developing the policy agenda for startups. And we do think that in Southern Africa, we have the level of innovation coming from the youth to do that. So I can assure you that at the World Bank, we'll make sure that you are part of the conversation, that you are part of this policy making, and that you are coming with solutions that are really meaningful, significant in every aspect of the development of your countries. I was yesterday in a meeting, very interesting, Dimpo, with the UN, and an observation is that youth are not necessarily participating in the democracy process, in the electoral process. I think that a number of surveys have demonstrated that youth were not necessarily going to vote. But what was interesting, and this is why I want to make the link with the conversation that we have today, is that youth are so preoccupied in ensuring that they have options for their own livelihood, on their own trajectory, that sometimes it puts this agenda that is so important at the forefront. So there was some kind of correlation before of the engagement of the youth, in the various, vote political cycle, and what is happening on the economic opportunities and the jobs. So I want to mention that. So clearly, I don't know if you measure, the importance of what you are doing, that you are starting now. So really, we would like you to engage, to invite your friends who also are keen and believe that there is a role for the youth to play, to join, the Belnasa, and to make time. I think that we are all busy, doing numerous things. In fact, I had another meeting, but I told my team, you put aside this other meeting because I want to be there. I want to listen to the youth. I want to see how they see the future and how they see that they can, participate in this policy making, in this thinking. And I think that this engagement that you will have will help you not only increase your knowledge, but sharpen your leadership skills, because you have to be there in the sphere, open sphere, to make your point in a very credible way, in a very documented way, because it's not about say, well, because we are the youth, we have to be there. If you are not prepared, you are not going to be really credible. So very, very pleased that the Belnasa Forum is stepping up. I had supported the development of such a forum in Nigeria, and I'm pleased to see how dynamic it is. So I hope that actually the Belnasa Forum could be exchanges with the Nigeria Forum, not just for what we do at the World Bank, because of course, as I mentioned, given the numbers with what you are representing, you are a very important and credible stakeholders for us. But beyond the World Bank, that you also have the platform to be able, to assume your responsibility, to be credible. And I think that I hope that we will have, a development of this forum that is very well articulated, very well documented, very well informed, with recommendations that we can also help you, convey to higher level. We have a little bit of space to do that, but it's not just us. So I am totally excited, as you can imagine. And actually, those of you who have already heard that, on a personal note, I'm always saying, if you want to stay young, you stay with young people. And this is what I do all the time. And I think that it serves me right, don't you think? I feel almost I'm your age. So over to you, my dear Dimpo. Let us make this conversation moving at the right level of the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, MF. And I absolutely agree. It is working. Continue to spend time with young people. You absolutely look like one of us. But thank you so much for your time. I know you mentioned that you had to move aside one of your other commitments to make sure that you're able to join us today. And I think that speaks volumes to the bank's commitment to center young people's voices, not just in broader policy work, but I think in their everyday operations as well. I think we can all agree with you that young people have great ideas and that mainstreaming youth voices in policy and decision making is very important if we want to build more inclusive economies. But I think also thank you for highlighting some of those critical challenges that are at the center of young people's lived experiences today, such as employment and, of course, this looming climate crisis that really requires the ideas, the know-how, the expertise of young people to find viable solutions. And I think that the Belnasa Youth Forum is the perfect example of a platform that empowers and allows young people to do that. It brings together young people from Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Namibia, and South Africa to share their perspectives and make a real impact. But to tell us more about this forum that aims to give young people in Southern Africa a collective voice in policy and decision making, I am pleased to bring to the virtual stage one of the forum's secretariat members, Cindy Samkhamba. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Dimpo. Thank you, everyone, for coming to join us, and thank you for those lovely opening words, Marie-Françoise. So we are here today for the first of the Belnasa Youth Forum leadership sessions. So in continuing with the spirit of today, I'll start by telling you guys what the Belnasa Youth Forum is. You can go to the next slide, thank you. The Belnasa Youth Forum is a self-organized collective of young people from Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Namibia, and South Africa. The purpose of the forum was to mainstream and amplify the voices of young people from diverse backgrounds and sectors in socio-economic decision-making processes whilst driving critical dialogue, action, and initiative, both within and beyond the World Bank Group. Next slide, please. Pearl, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So in our background and how we started, with stats that say that in the future, African youth are becoming a majority in the global population and a majority in our population of Africa, it was important to consider the role that the youth would play in things like employment, entrepreneurship, policy reform, investment, and a wealth of other things that are important in a society. With regards to statistics like this, the Belnasa Youth Forum and the World Bank Group saw that it was fit to create a forum that would streamline the voices of the youth and to get more young people involved in this decision-making, development initiatives, and the overall narrative of our countries. The founding members of this forum were 5 young members who happened to be Blog for Dev winners and who operated in partnership with the World Bank Group. This partnership was driven by Marie-Françoise Marinelli, who is joining us today, with the clear intention to collaboratively achieve our mutual goal of supporting young people actively shape their country's future by placing them at the forefront and at the tables and in the rooms where these important decisions are being made. So as stated earlier, our target audience for this Belnasa Youth Forum is the youth which are aged between 18 and 35 who come from the countries of Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Namibia, and South Africa. And we're trying to incorporate as many people as possible. So we're not focused on any specific sectors. We're trying to be inclusive in that, and we are trying to create development and opportunities for young people in as many sectors as possible within our region. Our commitment to our forum members as the Belnasa Youth Forum is to create or share existing development opportunities with our forum members, to champion intergenerational dialogue between old and young people, and transformative initiatives which are focused on socioeconomic development. We also aim to streamline youth inputs to projects and processes that directly impact youth led by the World Bank Group and/or its stakeholders. We further aim to cluster regional youth initiatives aimed at influencing policy aligned to jobs, entrepreneurship, and skills development, which will all benefit young people. And lastly, to raise awareness and capacitate youth for policy participation, which we will be discussing further today as part of our panel guests. Next, with regards to our mission statement, our mission is to position youth from our region from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds as critical actors for social change, economic growth, and innovation. This we intend to achieve by acting as a link between the World Bank Group, its stakeholders, and the youth on the ground within our region. Our vision, which is closely aligned to our mission statement and our commitment, is to instill a renewed hope among our youth and develop the next generation of leaders by positioning them as co-creators of key development initiatives intended to improve all of our socioeconomic futures. Next, with regards to our structure of our forum is composed of an advisory committee, a secretariat, a task team, and forum members. Our advisory committee consists of 6 people who are advising us and teaching us with regards to strategic directive and alignment of projects and partnerships. Next, we have a secretariat, which is composed of 5 young members from each of the countries in the Belnasa region, which is Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Namibia, and South Africa. Each of these young members are responsible for each of the projects, the work, the initiatives, and the events that are held in each of the countries as part of the Belnasa Youth Forum's work. The task team, which works in close collaboration with the Secretariat, is co-responsible for doing this work, the initiatives, the projects, and the work in terms of helping each member who is a Secretariat from each of their countries. And lastly, we have our forum members, which there are no limit on, and who are the people who we are catering to and doing this forum for. Thank you. You can go to the next slide. Before I hand over to Pearl, who will tell us all how we can join the Belnasa Youth Forum, I just want to outline a few of the key events that we will be hosting as the Belnasa Youth Forum this year. First, we have our Belnasa leadership sessions, which today is the first in the series of these sessions. This is a series of quarterly virtual meetings where young people from the BELNS regions can get the opportunity to learn from the world's top leaders, change agents, and experts. Next, we have the Belnasa Hackathon, which is where we'll be engaging young people on creating local solutions to prevalent issues which are occurring in our region. And thirdly, later on in the year, there will be a World Bank Group Youth Summit where young people come together and discuss key ideas. And the Belnasa Youth Forum will be having a virtual event as part of the summit, which you guys can all join. And lastly, our key event is our official forum launch, which will be taking place on the 12th of August, which coincides with International Youth Day. This event will be taking place both virtually and in person for those who can make the event. This will be an opportunity for us to network, to share forum milestones, present our official strategy, and to appoint a new secretariat, as well as unveil other strategic partnerships which we create as we go on in the forum. Thank you. Pearl, the stage is now yours.
Pearl, are you still with us? Okay, it seems as though we have lost Pearl. I think she's having some technical difficulties, but while we figure out exactly what's happening and if Sindisa will be able to carry the rest of that presentation, I think this is a good time to remind you that as the young people that we are, we're very active on social media, and we have been live tweeting today's webinar. So please do follow us on Twitter and on Facebook at the Belnasa Youth Forum. We're using the hashtag Belnasa Youth as well as Belnasa. If you don't have access to social media, please do lend us your thoughts as well as your questions throughout. I think especially our panel discussion, you can do so by making use of the chat function. I'm just going to get confirmation now from the technical team that Pearl is back.
Yes, and I just want to check with you, Dimpo, if you can hear me.
We can hear you, and I think we can see your presentation. It's just not on the main screen.
Fantastic. So I will just speak to pretty much, what, Sindisa had left off, particularly to encourage young people that are joining us here today and those that will be watching online later, because this meeting is recorded, on how they can play a part, in building Belnasa Youth Forum. And remember, the forum is not for a specific group of individuals, but it is a forum that has been created as a platform for all young people within the target countries that was mentioned earlier on in this presentation. So there's two ways to be a part or to play your role within the Youth Forum. You can either register to be a forum member, or you can register or apply rather to join the task team. Now I'm just going to go through, really whiz through the criteria of, of both of these, two roles, starting with the task team on my left. So if you would like to be, part of the task team, and essentially the big difference between a task team member and a forum member is that task team members are more active in putting together from the design and implementation of the projects or initiatives that the forum itself is a part of. If you'd like to be a part of that, you would have to be between the ages of 18 and 27 years old at the time of appointment. You would have to be, residing in our 5 countries. So perhaps maybe you might be from a different country, you might be from Lesotho and you are residing in a different country, in South Africa, for example. But as long as you are residing in our target countries, you are most welcome to then apply to join the task team. You would need to have a proven record of participating in community or youth development initiatives that are centered around our core mandates. I think Sindisa did a brilliant job in outlining that. Now, I need to be very clear that this does not mean that we are trying to exclude people who might not have access to certain resources to do big, events or lofty initiatives. But if you're a young person that is active and you showcase active citizenry, even in your own community, then you are most welcome, or you qualify to apply as a task team member. And lastly, you would obviously need to commit time, towards, serving within the task team of the forum itself. And if you are interested to apply for this, there's a form that you would need to fill out. And the link is just there at the bottom. The team will also post this in the chat box as well, so that you have easy access to it. But also, again, there are social media platforms that you'll see after this slide where you can actually go and find out a little bit more information and also access the links as well. Now, if you want to be a forum member, the age group is between 18 and 35, as you see there at the time of registration. Again, very important, you must reside in our target countries. And then there's a form that all respondents will need to complete. It literally is general information that we just want to know about you, so that, this information basically guides the forum, both the task team as well as the secretariat members and their partners on initiatives and things that matter to the forum members as well. And again, the registration link is right there at the bottom. And just like the task team application link, that will also be shared in the chat box as well. And of course, because this is a forum of young people, we are quite active on social media. These are the platforms that we currently have as Belnasa. Please do follow all accounts, like and engage, ask questions. Even send us an inbox on any one of these platforms to propose some ideas that you might have. The secretariat will definitely take that to the table. And if you just want to send an email, that's the email address right there. So I'll stop right here and just thank the program director and hand it back over to you. Thanks, Dimple.
Thanks so much, Pearl and Sindisa, for that comprehensive presentation on how to join the Belnasa Youth Forum, but also the different roles that are available for young people to play. And I think that's so important when we do this kind of work, that we don't leave things in the air, but that we clearly and carefully define the kind of impact that we want to have, so that young people are clear about the role that they can play. So if you think that you can contribute to the work that the forum is trying to achieve, I know that Sindisa outlined all of the activities that will be taking place within 2023, then make sure you get in touch through that registration link. I think we're also going to be sharing the link on the chat box just for those who have missed it. But again, if you are on social media, then make sure that you also connect with us, because all the information that you might have missed will be made available there. I must just say before we launch into our panel discussion that this is the first time that any webinar I am a part of is right on time. We were meant to begin our panel discussion at 16:30 and it's 16:33. So I just want to put that out there for all of our speakers. You are all doing an incredible job. But as I said, it is now time to kick off our panel discussion. And the purpose of this conversation is to speak to people who are involved in work that allows young people to have an amplified voice in the policy space, from business and SMME development to development and growth on the continent, and even law and legislature. Over the next hour, we're really going to try and break down some of the most practical ways and easier entry points for young people to become drivers of policy and decision-making processes. And so it gives me great pleasure to welcome our speakers. We're joined by Ms. Matsi Modise. She's the chairperson of the Startup Act Steering Committee and a board chairperson at the Technology Innovation Agency in South Africa. We're joined by Mr. Lennon Monyai. He's a researcher and a youth focal point at the African Union Agency, the African Peer Review Mechanism. A warm welcome to you. We're also joined by Mr. Ko Esuman, who's an international lawyer and a legal counsel to the President of Ghana. And last but certainly not least, we're joined by Petrida Paul, who's a former African Union Youth Advisory Council member. She's also a board member at the Imara Leadership Initiative. A very warm welcome to all of you. I am in the presence of people that I low-key, high-key look up to. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But I think we should get right into it, because I know that Ms. Modise does have to leave us a bit later on. And I think to start us off with you, Matsi, excuse me while I get my life together. South Africa has undertaken many initiatives to bolster the success of small businesses, right? We are not short of initiatives and programs that aim to grow and support small businesses. We have things, such as the Economic Recovery Plan to help businesses recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. We have a red tape reduction task team that was set up last year to reduce the complex rules and regulations around doing business in the country. With all of these initiatives and programs in place, would you say we're on the right path? And are these interventions effective? And if they're not, what do we need to do to support the success of small businesses?
Dimpo, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be in your presence. I'm grateful to the World Bank, Marie-Francois, Pearl, for this wonderful invitation. And I think this conversation is so important because we as young people, I think I'll still consider myself a young person, even though I'm turning 40 next year, but I'm young at heart. We have to create the South Africa that we want. We have to create the Africa that we want. And to your question regarding, a lot has been put in place in terms of legislative frameworks, in terms of policy. The only thing that's missing is, let's do it. Let's just do it, right? We have great frameworks, things that are guiding us to help small businesses, but we're very good at creating policy frameworks, but very poor at implementing policy frameworks. And I think the challenge comes where everything that's done is done in silos. So if it's a government that's putting these policy frameworks in place, they're not necessarily interacting well and better with those who can implement it. So we tend to have a top-bottom approach versus a bottom-up, where as a collective, various stakeholders, whether it's young people, whether it's the business community, whether it's the entrepreneurship community, we need to start working and also collectively finding solutions. So great that we've got frameworks. South Africa is one of the countries that does have a lot of frameworks, but we are very poor at executing. So until we start being intentional about execution, all those well-written, lots of money being spent on writing frameworks, it's only going to end up as frameworks and not necessarily us seeing the actual impact of that.
Yeah. I think, I work in the policy space myself, and really finding or using accessible tools such as social media and digital media to, I think, mainstream the participation of young people in policy and decision making. And one of the things that we always talk about is the fact that the frameworks are there. The documents are there. It's just a matter of implementation. And I think also a part of that is trusting young people to not just form part of the process of creating interventions and creating policy, but to also start seeing young people as capable as implementation partners. And I think part of our conversation needs to be around how do we do that? I'm now going to move on and invite Mr. Lennon Monyai to be part of the conversation. Now, part of the work that you do at the APRM is to ensure the inclusion of youth voices in the APRM process. You are part of the team that led South Africa's youth submission that was compiled by young people and civil society organizations, really giving an account of the state of government reform, and what are some of the most common challenges that you see young people having to overcome to form part of this work, I think not just in South Africa, but across the continent?
Thank you so much, Dimpo. Greetings to colleagues and friends from the World Bank, and to you, Dimpo, our moderator. My name is Lennon. I work at the African Peer Review Mechanism. It's an organ of the African Union that was formed in 2003 with the primary responsibility of monitoring and evaluating the implementation of ACTEC, which is the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance. Now, this is a voluntary mechanism where about 42 African countries have joined. And basically what we do is to track and monitor governance on the African continent, looking at the governance instruments such as ACTEC, where we're following up on the CFTA and all other very good policy frameworks Of course, I will not exclude the African Youth Charter, which is very important to our African youth. So in 2019, when South Africa was undertaking its second generation country review report, a very important initiative was launched by the South African Institute of International Relations in partnership with Jasoro, where youth in South Africa were asked to give in a written submission on the 4 thematic areas that the African peer review mechanism does. This was the first of its kind in that young people throughout the country, all the 12 provinces, were given resources, and they worked creatively to speak to other young people and produce a document which was then used by the African peer review mechanism to assist in monitoring governance. Now, for me, other than normal participation in programs and activities of the institution, the African peer review mechanism, for the first time, young people that had been invited to this formal space were able to take initiative and be able to participate meaningfully and sustainably. And they also showcased that young people can be trusted with resources, leadership. There's a paper that has been written which sort of showcases this best practice. I think you can find it at the University of Johannesburg. I think it was written by SIRE, by the colleagues that led the initiative. So this is just for me a very good example of how institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, the African Union, multilateral institutions can actively make sure that young people participate. Yes, we've seen an increase of young people being invited to formal spaces of governance. However, the transition to seeing young people meaningfully participate, other than just coming to webinars, coming to events and etc., there's a need now for young people to actually be equipped with tools and resources to be able to make sure that their voices are heard and what they bring to the table has value. That's what I have to say for now, Dimple.
Thank you for that, Lennon. And just a personal anecdote. I was part of that process. And for me, I think as someone who's been in youth development for almost 5 years now, it is really one of the processes that put young people at the center. I think from right, at the beginning until the end. Young people had an opportunity to sit down with the consultancy as well as SIRE, who were obviously leading the process, and to not just fill in the gaps, right, but also decide what is it about governance in this country that we want to speak to, and what are the areas that we believe need to be a priority. So absolutely, if you're a young person in Southern Africa and you want to read about what young people who are on the ground doing work to change their communities had to say about not just the issues that young people are facing, but also possible solutions, I implore you to visit the SIRE website, the South African Institute of International Affairs. That paper is available there, and it is brilliantly written, even if I have to say so myself. But now I'd like to welcome Mr. Ko Esiman into the conversation. We speak a lot about making sure that young people are a part of formal decision-making processes, that young people need to be driving the agenda, young people need to be leaders. And you are the youngest legal counsel to President Nana Akufo-Addo in Ghana. So when young people do occupy spaces of leadership and they are in proximity to power, what do you feel is their responsibility to then agitate for more meaningful youth participation as well as inclusion of young people in governance and leadership?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Am I clear enough?
We can hear you loud and clear. I think that your picture is a little blurry, but we can hear you, so you can go ahead.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in this conversation. And I think that, anytime young people meet is an opportunity for us to share experiences and to be able to sort of talk about things that affect, young people, where the future of the world, the future of our respective countries and the future of the continent. So it's very important that these kind of conversations are had. You're right about that. I'm kind of like the youngest legal counsel to the president. I was appointed in 2017, and I've been advising him on legal matters, constitutional matters, as well as governance matters. But not only that, I get the opportunity to sit in cabinets where, the major decisions concerning the governance of our country take place. And there's a cabinet meeting that is scheduled to start any minute from now. So, but I'm monitoring to see, how I would work with that. But I think that it's, having been appointed at a very young age, I think I was 32 at the time I was appointed, and being in that position, it has given me an opportunity to see how important it is for young people to always be at the table, because the decisions that are taken, by presidents in this case, or governments, affect us young people in many ways. It affects our present day, it affects our future day, our future. And so it's very important for us to sit at the table. I would say that, by the grace of God, I was appointed to this position, and I've managed to be able to sort of do a good job. Hence, I haven't been fired for the last 6 years or so. And I think when I got here, a lot of people, even myself, I wondered what exactly I would be able to do to be able to encourage or instill confidence in other young people to be able to take up such roles. So I had to spend some time finding or carving a path for myself to be able to understand how I can play a very significant role in as a presidency. And I do have to sort of commend my boss, the president, because when we came into government, I wasn't the only young person that he brought around him. He's over 70 years old, but he's surrounded by a lot of young people. Most of us that were appointed around him were under the age of 40. His two deputy chiefs of staff, his communications director, his legal counsel, we're all his assistant secretary. We're all under the age of 40. So it and he believes in sort of getting young people and training them to become the next leaders, either in law or in politics or in governance. And so I think that being young has really given me an insight into how policy is made, and what kinds of thought processes that you can bring to bear as a young person in shaping policy that affects us in various aspects of the economy.
So many interesting points there, Ko. I think you made mention of the fact that President, I need to get it right. President Akufo-Addo is above the age of 70, but brought on a team of young people, which goes to show that even older generation leaders do believe in the competence of young people. We just need to figure out what then becomes some of, I guess, the stumbling blocks, when it comes to entrusting young people with positions of power. I'd like to welcome Ms. Petrida into our conversation now. And speaking about the competence of young people, and young people, I think, seeing themselves as, not just seeing themselves as leaders in policy and in governance, how do we then go about supporting young people to develop the knowledge, the skills, as well as the networks that they need to succeed within leadership roles on the continent to ensure that, when we speak about youth participation and allowing young people to lead, that we're not setting them up for failure?
Thank you so much, Dimple, and greetings, colleagues. It's really just a great honor to always join such a great platform under Belnasa Youth Group. I think just diving in directly to the question, I think this is an opportunity to actually increase the support for youth to be part and parcel in different policy reform processes, especially so as they can succeed also as young leaders, but also building their capacity. We've seen a lot of institutions that have different research think tanks, platforms within them, but also we've seen other institutions that hire young consultants in their institutional structure. And I think a good example we see is from our very own the legal counsel to the president of Ghana. So I think there are a lot of stages that we can find to lobby the engagement of young people, but also I think it's a matter of how well do young people also position themselves to be part and parcel of different, especially to succeed, because there is one aspect that you can engage a young person and it might end up being a failure at the end of the day. So how do we really avoid such situations? I think there's a need to increase more mentorship platforms for youth, especially when it comes to research work, how to understand policy itself. A lot of young people grasp the internal processes of policy formulation. How do you set up a policy? How do you involve different key actors in policy reforms, and which actors per se do you need to involve? So I think we really need to encourage the institutions that we are all from, even I, the one that I'm from, ideally, we are working with young people to see how best they can have that skill set. So as at the end of the day, once we do engage different young people from different countries, not only in the Belnasa region, but also in other countries, we can help also learn from each other, learn the best practices per se. And I think most of my colleagues already touched in several aspects that if they were not doing well, maybe they wouldn't be in a particular position. So it's good to have that strong foundation, but also it's also good to have that platform where we actually have young people integrated in different programs within several institutions, so that they can really be part and parcel of different policy reforms, processes, or formulation, because at the end of the day, young people are the leaders of today. So the capacity that they will get and the skills that they will get, either as a young researcher in your institution, either as an intern support in your institution, or when it comes to policy work, it will help build their capacity and ultimately, in a matter of time, have that succession plan that we all oversee too.
Thank you so much, Petroda. I think for bringing forth a very important aspect of the conversation, that element of civic education, right? Because young people cannot participate in civic processes if they do not understand them. And so I think constantly also advocating for opportunities within our own organizations for young people to be upskilled, for young people to be educated on how policies and politics and governance works is very important. And I think speaking about channeling resources to invest in young people, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to ask one question, and then I'm going to ask two people to answer it. One question, kind of two different questions. It's new, but let's see if it works. So my question is firstly to Matsi, Ms. Matsi Modise. Our finance minister in South Africa delivered the budget speech a day ago, yesterday, in fact, outlining what the spending for our government is going to look like. So in your opinion, are we simply channeling enough resources to support particularly youth-owned small businesses? And while we're still on the issue of investing in young people, I then would like Lennon to go straight after her and perhaps let us know about some of the opportunities that are available within the network of the African Union that young people can capitalize on to skill themselves and to acquire the necessary knowledge on how bodies such as the AU function, for example, and some of the practical ways that they can then form part of policy and decision-making processes at that level.
Dimpa, thank you so much for that question. And I also believe that this is a safe space to share honest views and honest ideas. So thank you also for reflecting on the budget speech that our Minister of Finance made on Wednesday, I think. But to be honest, nothing was new, nothing was exciting, nothing that spoke to policy reform of what it would really take to grow the small business sector, to invest in small businesses, especially youth-owned small businesses. So a lot was said around energy security, a lot was said around energy generation. There were some tax incentives for those who are now having to really survive, but nothing that said, this is a policy that we are creating or policy that we are forming to be able to grow our economy through growing small businesses and investing in small businesses. South Africa is one of the countries that are probably the most unattractive when it comes to attracting startups, technology startups. Our legislative frameworks, our visa frameworks makes it so unbearable, so difficult, so long, so expensive to be able to come and work in South Africa, come and co-create a business in South Africa. We do not have any existing tax incentives because, you know, as a Minister of Finance, you need to focus on how incentivizing people to actually invest in small businesses or invest in startup ideas. We have zero incentives. We used to have what you call Section 12J, which in 2021 was cancelled. And Section 12J was a tax incentive for venture capital companies. So that's companies that invest in startups, in technology startups. And that incentive was on for about 12 years. But then in 2021, it was cancelled. So at this point in time, we have all the reasons why people shouldn't start businesses, especially high growth, high impact businesses, technology, innovation focused businesses. And reforming that or changing that would not take a lot from the government or the minister to do. You know, we've done a lot of research, we've written a lot of white papers. We recently launched case studies of reasons why people are actually not staying in South Africa, why small businesses, small youth owned businesses are struggling. I mean, a lot of young people, when they start high impact, high growth technology startups, they're not going to register their intellectual property in South Africa. They'd rather go to Mauritius, they'd rather go to Delaware in America, they'd rather go to a whole lot of countries like Portugal, like Spain, because they are making it very attractive for people to come. And attractive means you create the right environment because you have the right policy and you also have the right incentives. So it's a function of what are our intentions. And if we are very intentional about growing small businesses, investing in small businesses, we have to make sure that we put in the right incentives and we create a right policy framework, which is not a difficult thing to do because we've been engaging the government long enough to say, guys, we want to work with you in reforming this. And, you know, Marie-Francois is one of the champions from the World Bank that has been engaging the government, but it's become very difficult for us to shift it. And we want to be part of the solution, right? I'm not sitting here complaining about things. It's more, we've identified what the solutions are. We want to be part of the solutions, but can government work with us? And we sit in one room, we come up with, we co-create the frameworks, reform, refine some of the ones that exist, bring back some of the ones that were cancelled, and let's just send positive sentiments. I mean, last year, the president made mention of a startup visa. Anybody that has had to try come into South Africa and open a business or run a business or lead a business would know how difficult a business visa is. So president made a great announcement, but from an announcement, nothing really has been done from a government side. So it's a function of don't make announcements if you're not going to enable it or enact it, and work with the people that are the ones that will be able to help you. So I'll kind of leave it at that. But right now, not much has been done, Dimpo. I mean, we all have the solutions and we want to be part of the solutions.
And Lennon, are you seeing the same trend within the African Union where pronouncements are being made about how we're going to invest in young people, but very little work is done? What can you tell us about some of the opportunities that are available for young people to form part of the network or to use the platforms of the African Union to empower themselves to be more active players in policy?
Thank you so much, Dimbo. You know very well that I can't criticize my own employers on this platform, but I'll be as honest as possible and actually give credit to the African Union and a number of multilateral institutions such as the World Bank. This very webinar that we're on is a testimony that big institutions, intergovernmental institutions, are starting to take young people's voices seriously and prioritizing them. As I said earlier on, Dimpo, young people already have been organizing in spaces that I tend to call uninvited spaces, so mostly informally. However, there is a surge in these invited spaces being opened up. So if you go to the African Union Commission, for example, there's the Youth Division, which is based in Addis Ababa. They run a number of initiatives, such as the 1 Million campaign. There's also the Center for Disease Control, CDC, which actually has an application that's open right now for Southern African and West African young people to become youth ambassadors for the Bingwa initiative. It ends today, and I've been reliably informed that South Africa, of the Southern African countries, has some of the lowest number of applicants. So you have a good opportunity as a young person to become a youth ambassador for health with the Center for Disease Control, for example. But within the African Union, there's a body called the AGA platform. These institutions within the African Union that promote democracy and good governance is in line with the ACTEC, the African Charter on Democracy, Governance and Human Rights. These institutions, the Pan-African Parliament, has a youth caucus, have youth programs. The African Peer Review Mechanism, the institution that I work for, I myself lead initiatives on youth mainstreaming. We have the Youth Symposium, which takes place every single year, that young people can form part of. You have the AGA Platform Secretariat, which over the past decade has been leading in youth and governance in terms of online conversations, youth consultations. Some of them are advertised. So at the heart of participation is also getting these opportunities to young people. I think a lot of young people actually do not know some of these institutions exist and some of the opportunities that they offer. So these institutions, such as my own institutions, need to do a lot of work in terms of disseminating information, and equally vis-a-vis, young people need to take effort to search and find out what is out there so that they can be equipped with information and knowledge on how to reform policy, because you can't reform something that you don't know. Now, when it comes to regional level, at SADC level, I'm extremely happy that the World Bank, through this forum, is initiating a youth forum, because currently there's a gap at a continental wide range. There's a lot of programs that are there that are very good. But at a regional level, except I think for East Africa, the East African community where my sister Patricia Paul comes from, there are a lot of initiatives that are run at a regional level. Unfortunately, in SADC and in Southern Africa, I think you have SIOF, which is a forum that works with SADC from time to time, but there is need for more regional forums, such as this very one that looks at countries such as Botswana, Lesotho, Swaziland, South Africa, Namibia. I think it's very important that this very forum takes lessons from other forums that exist, that I've mentioned, such as the Youth Connect that takes place in East Africa. you have a whole range of activities and programs. It's just that young people need to know them and apply and get involved. And in conclusion, I actually want to thank the World Bank Director for supporting youth, and I challenge her to actually work with African Union institutions such as the African Peer Review Mechanism, the Youth Division in Addis Ababa, the Pan-African Parliament, to get young people to be more Pan-African, to implement policies at a national level where policy reform is needed the most. Thank you so much. You are muted, Dimple.
I did realize that. Thanks so much for that, Lennon. I think you've done an excellent job of really outlining some of the opportunities that exist within the African Union network, but also I think comparing, what youth development activities look like regionally. So you spoke about the APRM Youth Symposium that is hosted every year. And I was very lucky to attend it last year in Uganda, and mind blown by, I think, how different youth development and youth participation looks like in different regions. And I think it's absolutely important what you mentioned about us being able to learn from one another and constantly being aware of some of those best practices. And I think while we're on the subject of capacitating young people, I think Lennon has, shifted the conversation by letting us know that work is being done. So it's not all doom and gloom. There is a lot of activity, and there are initiatives and programs that seek to get young people involved in the policy space, in politics and in governance. But we all know that there is a tendency to engage young people in a way that's tokenistic and not to really allow young people to be meaningful decision makers. And so I'd like Mr. Ko Estuman as well as Ms. Petrida to come in here. And I think as young people who have occupied very important leadership roles, right? Petrida, you sit on the Youth Advisory Council, formerly on the Youth Advisory Council of the African Union. And of course, Mr. Estuman, legal counsel to the President of Ghana. What is meaningful youth participation, and what can young people do in spaces where they feel like they're being invited into the room just to be invited into the room, but not to be taken seriously and trusted with the task of making decisions?
So who goes first?
I think you can lead. I think please feel free to go ahead, Ko.
All right. Thank you once again for the opportunity. I think that, first of all, as a young person, you're already, faced with a challenge, i.e. that you're young and you're inexperienced. So that's how they're looking at you when you walk into the room. Like, what do you have to say? What do you know about this or that? And in our African context, that's how our cultural setting is, But in Ghana, there's a proverb that says that, I'll say it in English because I don't think most of you, any of you know the Ghanaian language, which says that if you're a young person and you know how to wash your hands very well, you'll be invited to eat at the table of elderly people. So essentially, young people, when we walk into the room, first of all, we need to know that if we're going into a meeting, we've got to prepare for that meeting. If we're going into a conversation, we've got to prepare for that conversation. The research that we need to do to be able to know that, to have the information, we should do it. And we should also have, think outside the box, when we get into the meeting, we should also treat the people that are there with respect. So just because you're young and you have fresh ideas and you think that the ideas that are being put forward by these old folk are ideas that are expired, doesn't mean that you should communicate the ideas that you have in a very disrespectful manner. You usually find sometimes young people walk into the room and because they know what they're talking about, they tend to be very arrogant. and obviously old people will not take kindly to that. And so, for instance, they might not even listen or hear what you have to say. And so you might be in the room, you're talking, but whatever you're saying is not having an impact or is not influencing the conversation or the decision making. Another thing I would say is that, you know, as young people, because most of us are considered to be inexperienced, it's very, very important for us to identify people that we can have as mentors, and also have sort of cross-generational collaboration. So, for instance, if you're in a business setting and you're a young person, you have a very sort of brilliant business idea, you set up a company and you're pursuing your business interests, you know, you can have on your board someone who's very experienced in that industry. Like recently, a friend of mine, you know, in the mining industry, got some really brilliant ideas. He started a company and he's gotten a concession to mine gold. And he came to me and he was like, you know, he's trying to identify some people in the industry that have made it, who have, you know, experience. And so I mentioned a few of them to him, introduced him to a few people. And because, you know, he wants to build something that will not be you know, taken lightly, he contacted some of the very well-known names in mining in the world to sit on the board of the company that he, you know, he has set up. So young people need to look at, you know, those kinds of relationships, the cross-generational relationships, to see how best you can learn from those who have gone before you. And that way, if you're speaking with some form of authority. You know, I've had the privilege, you know, I work with the president, and because of the trust that he's had in me over the years, you know, we passed two legislation. One, to sort of govern the state's interest in, you know, in companies and the governance of state entities. And he put me on that board because he thought that because of the ideas that have been given to him, the suggestions have been coming to him with, and so on and so forth, you know, that is something that I should participate in. And also the second one was a minerals income investment fund. To, you know, over the years, Ghana, we've been mining gold and all these other minerals, and our country has not really been benefiting from it. And so we passed a law to set up a sovereign fund to sort of relook at the use of this income in a way that'll be beneficial to the mining areas and also to Ghanaians at large. So, you know, we invest this, and he said it point blank that he would want me to be on that board, because this is something that, obviously, like I said in my first response, the young people are affected by policies of the present, and and policies that will have an impact on them in the present time and in the future. And obviously, having passed this legislation, the use of the monies that are coming into the state coffers will have an impact on us presently and also in the future, because, you know, this is generational wealth that cuts beyond my time, you know, my children's time, and you want to make sure that whatever investment is done for the future. So in conclusion, you know, I think that when young people are invited to the table, for them to be taken seriously, they've got to know what they're going to talk about. They have to research, they have to prepare, they have to be respectful in their submissions. Arrogance gets you nowhere, even though you know. And you've got to have that cross-generational sort of collaboration with elderly people. Find mentors who can mentor you and show you the right path. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that submission, Cole. And I think I'm not going to waste any more time. Petuda, if you would like to make your submission and your experience as a young person who sat on a high-level advisory council, were there times when you felt as though, you know, you were not being taken seriously, you know, that you may have been on a structure? Sometimes that's even there just for PR. And what can young people do? Because we know that these things happen, unfortunately, when they feel as though they are not being taken seriously as meaningful participants in the policy process.
Thank you so much, Dimple. And I think I think one of the key issues that as young people, we have to understand that you need to be a young professional. And I think our former colleague Code just mentioned that the need of having mentorship and someone to actually build you up. There's one notion, and I think it is true to some extent, that most young people in different platforms are kept in terms of tokenism. And when I mean tokenism, it's a matter of ticking boxes, that we have a particular young person, she's the face, he's the face. We are including young people in our institution. The work is done. But ideally that has to change for some particular settings, because I think for our role that we had, and I think this is where we bring in the difference. Young people have the power to organize and galvanize. We managed to steer up a bit of trouble, but also to engage different young people from across Africa in a meaningful way, in terms of you're already a young person, you have a particular position in a certain area. How best do you bring other young people on board? I think we've heard Lennon say that there's several opportunities for the AU Bingo initiative, or from the APRM, or from the AGA platform. That is already an example of how bring other young people on board, so as they can also occupy spaces. And I think even Cole did mention it, and Matsi did mention a point on the fact that we need to stop working in silos. So I think there is an opportunity for young people to actually claim their spaces, despite a lot of notion that young people sometimes can be seen as rebels. Sometimes it's the tokenism aspect, but you can change a whole entire institution's perspective on youth engagement, especially when you lead the young people in the right way. There are some instances that it can be an unfortunate instance that if one young person does a mistake, all of the young people are included in one bubble. And I think that is most common, because, you know, young people, we have that adrenaline rush. When something bothers us, we can go to social media and do a lot of issues, but they might have an effect in the future. So I think it's the aspect of how best can youth learn to have that composed leadership skill. And you don't entirely need to have a composed leadership skill to actually claim your space as a young person to be engaged in particular. But you can showcase other skill sets that you might have. You can be a young professional. You might be good at proposal writing. You might be good at writing a funding proposal. You might be good at actually engaging different partners or stakeholders to increase interventions to support youth work. And I'll bring it back to the Belnasa Youth Forum itself. I think the forum has had great mentorship from the World Bank, and I think that is how it's helping to support other young people. So walking the talk, how best do we ensure that as a young person myself, as other leaders who are senior leaders per se that we engage with, can walk the talk with us together and ensure that we deliver by impact, not only when it comes to conversation, but also when it comes to addressing different challenges in communities. We have a lot of challenges that are facing, from environment to gender, politics, when it comes to good governance, but young people are the ones who are mostly affected, including women and children. But how best are these young people really taking initiative to address the issues? So I think a good, really strong mentorship can help, but also amicable leadership. I'll still go back to it, because at the end of the day, you can complain about bureaucracy and how youth are being engaged, not enough, but how are you working around the bureaucracy to stop the noise that youth are not being engaged, to actually create favorable environments for youth to be engaged? Because at the end of the day, if we as young people are not the ones to change the narrative, we'll be sitting next couple 4-5 years also hearing from other young people complain of the same issues that young people are still not being engaged. So I think mostly it's the initiative starting from ourselves as youth to be able to push that button, to be engaged per se in areas where young people feel they're not being equally engaged. But I think we do have several platforms currently that are prioritizing youth work, not only in SADC, but also across Africa and across the world. So we really need to tap into the opportunities and bring other young people on board. That's all.
You're on mute.
Thank you so much for that, Petroda. I think I'm just going to keep my mic on for the rest of the session. Thank you for your contribution. I think what really excites me is that we are hearing from experts who have done incredible work in opening up spaces that allow young people to do exactly what we're talking about today, to reform policy. But on the line, we also have young people who registered as attendees, who are working in the civil society space, who are professionals, like Petroda and Co alluded to, young people who are competent, who may even have aspirations of becoming political leaders and office bearers someday. And I think I just want to hear from you. So please reach out to us in the chat or on social media and let us know what your experience as a young person in pursuit of leadership has been like, and whether or not everything we are mentioning today about the spaces that are available for young people and young people needing to put their hands up, and show up for opportunities has actually been true in your lived reality and in your lived experiences. Feel free to also ask any questions to any of the panelists, and we will try to make room for them, even though we have about 8 minutes left of today's panel discussion. I think my final question before I ask for parting shots is to Mr. Ko Eswatini, and perhaps I think even Lennon and Matsi. What are some of the gaps in youth participation in the work that you do that forums such as Belnasa could then become an answer to, right? So Matsi, what are the gaps in young people having a collective voice in the entrepreneurship space, in the SMME space? Lennon, what are the gaps in young people having a collective voice in policy and in governance? And I think with you, Ko, what are some of the gaps that deter young people, I beg your pardon, from having their voices heard, I guess, when it comes to legal matters and issues around the justice system and different legislative frameworks? So I'll start with Matsi, and then we'll quickly go to Mr. Ko Eswatini because he has to jump off the call, and then we'll wrap up with you, Lennon.
Sure. I think for me, more on the softer side, but most critical is the confidence, right? The confidence to believe in yourself, to believe that this is what I want to do. I mean, when I started off, I used to be in investment banking. I left that to start my own business, and I've never looked back. And it's been like about 13 years, never looked back. But did I know how to start a business? No. Did I know how to run a business, how to look for opportunities? No. But did I have the confidence to do it? Hell yeah. Did I know that this is the time to do it? This is how I am wired as a person, and I'm going to believe in myself, even though I haven't done anything for anybody to believe in me. So I think as young people, we should have more confidence, especially as young Africans, knowing that this is our continent for the taking, because everybody else outside of Africa says that Africa is for the taking, except for us. So I think as young people, let's have that confidence, even if you don't know anything, but the ability to know that this is what I want to do, regardless of what I don't know, what I don't have, I will do it. So let's have more confidence.
Short and sweet. That was perfect, Matsi. Ko, what are some of the gaps where young people's voices could, I guess, fill the space when it comes to the different ways we shape our justice system and shape legislature?
Thank you very much again, Dimple. I agree 100% with Matsi. It's the same thing that cuts across, I believe, because most young people are deterred because they're not experienced or they haven't been in that situation before. Myself, when I got appointed, that was one of the first things that people used to scare me about, like, what are you going to do there? Like, what exactly are you going to mind you, the president is one of our celebrated lawyers in this country. He has more cases to his name than any other lawyer that has practiced in Ghana, and he's well known in our constitutional jurisprudence. So really, you coming from a very young lawyer coming to be his advisor, it's quite overwhelming. It's a daunting task. So you find most young people will shy away from that because they don't have the experience. But what Mati said is the confidence. And sometimes you've got to have some people urge you on that, listen, you can do it. And once you get in as a young person, you have to deliver. You have to deliver because it's your results that will keep you in wherever you are. Do you see what I'm saying? As a lawyer, when I used to go to court, you turn up in court against some of the most senior lawyers who have practiced for years, but it is your preparation and the research that you've done on the cases and when you do that, your arguments become very easy and eloquent, and the judge gets to understand. There was this one time that I went against one of the senior lawyers in the Supreme Court, and it was a case that was against us. My boss at the time didn't think that we could win, but when I went to court, and argued before the Supreme Court, in fact, I didn't even think that we could win. But right there and there, the judge was like, he's going to give his ruling. We've won the case, but we should come back in 2 weeks for the reasons why we have won the case. But before we went to court, I was really worried. Like, this is the Supreme Court. You're going against one of the most senior lawyers in the country. How are you going to be able to overcome, something that the law is very gray on that matter? So you've got to have the confidence, like Mati said. I totally agree with that. And like you said, I've got to jump off. Cabinet has started. I've already signed in, but I wanted to finish this conversation, but I've got to jump off and go downstairs. So it's been lovely participating in this webinar, and I wish the Belnasa group a very, very the best in everything that you do, and I thank them for the opportunity to participate. I also want to commend the World Bank for the support that they're giving to not just Belnasa, but even in Ghana, the youth. They've been fantastic with some of the programs that we've rolled out for regarding the youth, and so I just want to commend them as well. And thank you all to my fellow speakers. I think you've made the conversation very insightful. I've made a lot of notes. I'll add them to my my things and my arsenal. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful webinar.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ko-Eswatini, for making the time for us just an hour before a whole cabinet meeting. I think it's so inspiring to be in conversation with young people who don't just speak about, young people being brave and courageous, but who are actually taking up the task of leading, especially at the level that you are. So thank you so much. I know that a couple of people who've been watching have been inspired by your work. And we have also been taking notes. So thank you again for all of your contributions. Lennon, I'm going to ask you to wrap us up on this particular question and just speak to the gaps that exist within, I guess, governance and policy space. I think particularly maybe if you could give us a continental view that young people, I guess, could be an answer to. Earlier, you alluded to the fact that Southern Africa isn't really strong when it comes to doing regional work. So perhaps that could be a place that a forum like Belnasa could start.
Yes. Thank you so much, my dear sister Dimpo. And you didn't speak much about yourself. You have recently been appointed as one of the youth advisory members of the city of Gauteng Advisory Council. I hope I said it right. Congratulations on that. And this is another example of how young people can actually be at the center of policy reform. And we hope that best practice can even be trickled down to even municipalities at a local level and etc. to get young people involved. So the first thing that I'll recommend to Belnasa is that they should not reinvent the wheel in terms of coming up with ideas that are already being implemented. The fact that we need a youth yet another youth forum on the continent is important, but I think it's very important for them to, colleagues, I speak to Pearl and other colleagues there, it's very important that they share notes and start collaborating with the already existing forums and find ways of closing the gaps of what already is being done, so that there's no sort of repetition and overlapping of programs and activities. We at the EPRM, for example, now that I know the work that they're doing and what they're trying to achieve, we'll be more than open to collaborate and make sure that we get young people in the Belnasa countries involved. Then to young people, and this is a plea, young people, especially those that are well educated, that come from privileged backgrounds, those that are professionals, they, to some extent, are afraid of getting into politics. And that's where one of the biggest gaps I've identified. So for instance, in each and every single country, most countries, including South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, Swaziland, there are what are called national youth councils. Now, national youth councils work with government on a daily basis. They influence government policies on what they do. In South Africa, for example, the National Youth Council works closely with the NYDA, the national. Now, if you don't know, if you're participating on this forum, go find out who's leading the National Youth Council in your country, how you get to influence, attend meetings of the National Youth Councils, so that you can now reform policy in invited places. And it tends to be politicized. So if you fear politics, you then can't get involved. So we need more young people to get involved in organized political spaces where reform actually takes place, where they can influence ideas properly. You can tweet as much as you want. You can organize protests. For as long as you're not politically involved, you will not be able to reform policy. Then lastly, and I'll give you a story about myself. When I joined the APRM, there was no youth program there. And we, with the help of other young people, we pushed the organization to start a youth program, and today we have a beaming youth initiative that we run. So those that are already in privileged positions, in those that work at World Bank, those that work at SADC, these multilateral institutions, those that are in the government, they need to disrupt spaces to make sure that young people are involved. Make sure that your institution has a youth program or is mentoring young people, or young people are invited to meetings. That's where organic ideas on how young people can meaningfully participate can be born. So with that said, let me again thank the leadership of the World Bank group for supporting young people that have come up with this Belnasa group, and I hope and I challenge them that they fund this program and make sure that it's sustainable and reaches the young people of all these countries. Thank you.
Thanks, Lennon. Thank you for that. And I think thank you for that last point you made, especially about funding the work of young people on the continent. We need resources to finance the work that we do so that it can have the kind of impact that we envision. I think I would have liked us to end here, but I realized that I haven't given Ms. Petrida Paul the opportunity to give her parting shot. So I think in just 2 minutes, and I'm really glad that we've already alluded to, tweeting and using social media and digital platforms to amplify the voices of young people. In your parting shot, Petrida, if you would be so kind to weave this element of how young people can take advantage of those digital and social media platforms, I guess, to band together, not just to have a collective voice, but to also hold decision makers accountable.
Thank you, Dimple. Ideally, I think from my side, it will be more around how we can actually ensure young people are better because social media can be used in a good way that can actually elevate someone, and social media can be used in a bad way that can actually lead to a lot of chaos online. So I think despite the fact that the virtual spaces, the online platforms are available and accessible to most young people, once used very well, they can be able to reach out to different leaders, to call on different policymakers to actually change any policy that is affecting youth, affecting the society, but also increase more investment on youth work if that is the particular need per se. So I think the actual use of social media platforms in a good way can help, but we also need to be a bit mindful on how well we use the online spaces, because once something is already posted online, it can hardly really be erased in a long-term run and can lead to either positive or negative effect. But all in all, I think we have it as a good opportunity to share different opportunities for young people. And I think a lot has been exhausted, to be honest, and it has really been a great platform to engage today and also to engage with other young people from across the SADC region. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Petuda. And I thank you for doing a thing that panel speakers usually don't do, which is keep to time. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our conversation. I always say that my favorite thing about being a part of discussions is that you end up with more questions than you did when you started because of all the new information that you need to process. But it's important that we have these conversations because we end up with better questions. And when we ask better questions, we are much closer to reaching the kind of solutions that we need to bring about change. And in this instance, to bring about the way that change the way that young people interact with policy in their respective countries. Thank you so much to our wonderful speakers. It has been an absolute pleasure to be in your presence and to lead and guide such a vital conversation. Ms. Matsi Modise, Lennon Munyai, Co Esiman, as well as Petrida Paul. We are going to swiftly move along with our program so that we keep to time. And right now, I'm very excited. I don't know if everyone heard my tone going up there slightly. We're going to hear a bit about the World Bank Youth Summit 2022 and 2023. The World Bank Youth Summit presents an opportunity for young people to form part of some of the work that the World Bank does by pitching solutions that come in the form of entrepreneurial ventures. And these would be businesses that have a social element and in some shape or form solve a social issue that young people grapple with in their communities. And so with no further ado, I'm going to call on Ms. O'Neill Masamba, who is the manager for the World Bank Youth Summit, to tell us briefly about all of the work that's been done both last year and this year, and I think most importantly, how young people can take part in the months to come. Welcome, O'Neill. Always great to see you. You have the stage.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. Thank you, Dimpo, for the introduction, and to our audience online. Hello, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. I've been already chatting with some of you in the chat, but I'm really looking forward to tell you more about the Youth Summit and the upcoming Youth Summit pitch competition that we have. But before doing that, I would like to definitely praise the Belnasa team for organizing such an important event. As a lawyer myself who has done policy work, I can only emphasize the importance of introducing policy reforms and ensuring their implementation to make an impact in practice. But the role the youth can play in driving reforms should not be underestimated. This is the reason why this event is important. It's to remind you that you're drivers of change and that you should make your voices heard. And this is really what we do with the World Bank Group Youth Summit, making sure that youth worldwide have a platform to make their voices heard. And so I know some of you are active in the chat. So the first question that I'm going to ask you is, have you heard of the World Bank Group Youth Summit? If yes, put it in the chat. If you're not familiar with the event, it's fine. I'm going to present you the summit, the pitch competition, and I'm going to save some time at the end to answer some of your questions. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see it. Okay. Okay, hope everyone can see my screen. But regarding, perfect, wonderful. Okay, so the World Bank Group Youth Summit is the largest annual gathering of youth hosted by the World Bank Group to engage with youth from all over the world on the most pressing topics facing their generation and empower them to explore innovative ideas that tackle development challenges. And so this year we're celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the World Bank Group Youth Summit. And as we're doing that, we really wish to bring light to local voices, local solutions, and local change makers who are fundamental to achieving the World Bank Group's twin goals of ending extreme poverty and fostering shared prosperity. So with our theme from the ground up, local solutions to drive global impact, we strive to echo the voices of marginalized groups and marginalized communities and place solutions that are created, led, and driven by marginalized communities at the heart of initiatives to address three critical development challenges: fragility, conflict, and violence, also called FCV, climate and energy, and jobs and skills. And so to efficiently tackle these challenges and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, we believe that voices often silenced or disregarded need to be brought to the global stage. And this is what we're doing with the World Bank Group Youth Summit this year. And so you can see on my screen different components that really makes the Youth Summit what it is. So the Youth Summit is taking place this year on May 25th and May 26th in Washington, D.C. and online. So it's a 2-day event. And during those 2 days, you have different activities. What we call the thematic engagement, which is basically fireside chat, keynotes, and plenary session with high-profile experts from the World Bank Group and other international organizations, institutions, private sector, and so on, and experts from all over the world, so even in more local communities. Then we have the Keys Challenge, which is for me one of the most exciting parts about the Youth Summit. So when you're selected as a delegate for 2 days, you're invited to work on a real project of the World Bank Group that we turn into a case. And as a team, you develop a solution, and then you present it to a panel of experts. Most of those experts are from the World Bank Group, but you also have experts from Deloitte and other organizations. And then once you're the winner in your region, because we organize this in each region, you move to the global stage, you present your solution, and the winners of the pitch competition, the case challenge, get to publish a blog. And so over the past 2 years, we've had blogs published by our delegates who don't work at the World Bank Group, but who attended the summit that present that solution. And every year we had publications from delegates from Sub-Saharan Africa. And then the other component is the regional event, and I know it was mentioned early on today. And so the idea is really to give you the opportunity to look at the theme and sub-themes of the summit, but with a lens that is more focused on your region, sometimes on your country, depending on how the regional event is tailored, and really give you an opportunity to interact with experts locally, but also bring your voices to a global stage. Then we have networking events, and I know that was also something that was mentioned about mentoring, about the possibility, I saw this in the chat, the possibility of getting guidance. And so what we're trying to do, instead of a regular networking where you can talk with other delegates, we want to also do speed networking, where we pair you with professionals from the World Bank Group, and you have 10 minutes with them to ask them quick questions and potentially keep their contact and interact with them in the future to ask them questions about their job, about their field of work, and hopefully grow professionally. And then we had the career development session, and I mentioned that in the chat as well. So we introduced this last year, and it was really successful. And so we do a session where we highlight all the recruitment programs at the World Bank Group, at IMF, because we're a partner again with us this year, and at the United Nations. And so with this session, you get an understanding of the different programs, how to make a good application. You talk to actually the people who are recruiting for those programs. And yeah, you get to have more information on the opportunities in those different organizations. But what we've also noticed is that a lot of our participants have great ideas, are considering entrepreneurship. And so this year we're partnering with Deloitte on this component as well, where we're going to provide some sessions on entrepreneurship, how to build a business, and so on. So there's different ways to grow professionally and to get opportunities to grow professionally through the Youth Summit. And then there are 3 other components to the pitch competition, and I won't expand on that now because I'll do it in a minute, but basically it's where we invite young innovators from all over the world to present a solution to a global stage. And we decided to introduce 2 new things this year, the lightning talks, which will give the floor to anyone, delegates online, in person, to pitch their idea in a minute. If you have an idea, solution that you want to share with a global stage, you can pitch it, and that can open opportunities. And finally, a party, because it's the 10-year anniversary, and this would be more for people in person, I assume, but there would be a lot of activities online as well. And so just in terms of to tell you the numbers, last year we had more than 265,000 people who watched the event. So let's say that you decide to participate in the pitch competition or the lightning talk, you really have this opportunity to have your voices heard on a global stage. You have the president of the World Bank Group who participates in those events. You have the managing directors of operation of the World Bank Groups and other great personalities from the private sector and other international institutions. So it's a great way to have a platform to exchange with people from all over the world and make your voices heard. So it's open to youth between the age of 18 and 35. In terms of conditions to attend, really, we understand that not everyone have access to education. I know a lot of people were saying like partnering with universities, but we want to expand our outreach. So even in terms of selection, what we really look into when we look at application is, do you have an understanding of the topics that we're going to address, the different sub-themes? And do you have an understanding, what can you bring to the conversation? Have you done something within your community, within your city, within your village, within your school that it would be interesting to bring to the conversation? That's really what we're looking for. And so in terms of attendance, you can attend in person in Washington, D.C. But for those who wouldn't be able to attend in person, the event is available online as well. And for those who need financial support to have access to data, we pay for data for the 2-day event. So that's a great opportunity to really interact with you from all over the world. Before joining the World Bank Group, I actually attended the summit, and that's why I was so excited to then be part of the organization. So if you have questions about the Youth Summit, please put them in the chat, and I'll answer them at the end if we have some time. But otherwise, I'm going to switch to the pitch competition part. So now that you have an understanding of the context of this year's Youth Summit theme and the different opportunities you have with the Youth Summit, I want to give you more insight on the pitch competition. So in continuity with the summit theme, the World Bank Group Youth Summit pitch competition invites young change makers from all over the world to make their voices heard and share local solutions that can have a global impact to address development challenges in FCD countries and setbacks arising from climate change and lack of energy access and jobs and skills. But what does it mean in practice? Well, our pitch competition co-leads have identified certain topics under each sub-theme: fragility, conflict, and violence, climate and energy, and jobs and skills. And I'll give you more details about those different topics in a minute. But we really welcome applications on other topics as well, as long as they really adhere to at least one of the 3 sub-themes that I just mentioned. And so with regard to the format of your proposal, you have complete freedom as well. Your proposal can be a physical product, a digital product, a technical product. It can be supply chain and operations focused, a program. We're talking about policy here, so it can be policy oriented or business oriented, or in any other forms, as long as it addresses the challenges of one of the 3 sub-themes that I mentioned: fragility, conflict, and violence, climate and energy, and jobs and skills. What we do encourage, though, is that we give an emphasis on gender, indigenous groups, and marginalized communities. So again, if you have any questions about the application format, please put them in the chat. I'll answer them. If I don't have time to answer them during the session, you can even send an email to the Youth Summit email address. I'll share it with you, and my team will answer them as well. So now let's dive into the 3 sub-themes so you get a better idea on the opportunities you have with the pitch competition. So the first sub-theme is fragility, conflict, and violence. And so when talking about FCD solutions, we're looking for applications from teams based in FCD affected regions or countries, but we're also open to teams based in non-FCD affected regions, as long as the solution really addresses challenges faced by FCD affected regions or countries. So you have a list here of potential topics to explore, but let's focus, for instance, on food security, just to give you an idea of what you could explore. When you talk about food security, we encourage applicants to think, for instance, of solution around innovation in farming techniques, or highlighting indigenous farming techniques with a modern outlook. It can also be solutions that can increase productivity or participate in preserving natural soil fertility or provide employment to marginalized communities. So again, food security is not the only topic in FCV. There are a plethora of topics that could be explored when thinking of FCV, and so much on the screen, but it's just to give you an example on how you could explore a topic. Then the second sub-theme is climate and energy. And so at the community level, we're really looking for solutions aimed at strengthening communities' resistance, solutions that help communities to adapt to and mitigate climate-related shocks, to natural disasters and climate change. But this sub-theme also welcomes solutions focused on improving energy efficiency and the use of low-emission, non-traditional sources of energy. You have, again, examples of topics to address here, but you have complete freedom on the topics you want to discuss, the solution you want to develop, as long as it addresses one of the challenges relating to climate change and energy. And finally, you have the third pillar, which is jobs and skills. And so here we're looking for any entrepreneurship venture that generates employment while addressing FCV or climate or energy challenges. It can also be a solution that supports local entrepreneurship through programs, boot camps, empowerment initiatives, financial management programs, microfinancing schemes to help marginalized communities better manage finances, and etc. So this is really a snippet of the topics to explore in each sub-theme, but we also have an FAQ in the application form that will give you more details in each sub-theme. We also had an information session if you want to learn more, but that was just to give you a quick overview of the different sub-themes to explore. Now I would like to talk about logistics. So the pitch competition is open also to youth between the age of 18 and 35 included. So that's our audience. And so no prior experience is needed. So you can be a student, but you can also be someone from the workforce, someone with prior experience, but this is not a requirement. You don't need to have any experience to participate in the pitch competition. What really matters is how innovative is your solution? And you really have to bear in mind that because we're seeking to be more inclusive, we really encourage diverse and gender balanced team. But what is really important in addition to that is really kind of finding a solution that fits within the sub-themes that I've mentioned, at least one of them. And so you have the opportunity to apply as an individual, or you can apply as a team. And as a team, it can be a team of up to 5 people. And let's say that your team reaches the final stage, as you see here, you will have to appoint a team leader who will be invited to pitch their solution in Washington, D.C. All the expenses to come and stay in Washington, D.C. to pitch the solution will be covered by the World Bank Group Youth Summit. And we will also provide support to obtain the visa. That's what we have done in the past. So we pay for the expenses of the finalists of the pitch competition. And that's something also we introduced last year. Now you are allowed to submit your solution in French, in Spanish, in Arabic, or in English. And even the day of the summit, you can pitch in one of those 4 languages. And so the deadline to apply is March 3rd. We might consider extending it, but just keep in mind that this is the current deadline right now. And if there's new information, we'll share them with Belnasa so they can share them with you. But you can also consult our website and send an email to our World Bank Group Youth Summit email address. Now, I think that some of you might be wondering, in addition to everything I've said, why you should apply to the pitch competition. So beyond this opportunity of really showcasing your solution to a global audience, again, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of my presentation, we had more than 265,000 people watching this event. In addition to that, so having this opportunity to share your solution with a global audience, well, we're developing a lot of partnerships. So it's a work in progress, but right now we've secured a partnership with George Washington University, Deloitte, the UN Youth Envoy Office, and they will all be providing opportunities for the finalists and winner of the pitch competition. And so something that is being reconducted this year is, for instance, George Washington will be providing pitch coaching ahead of the summit to help you prepare your solution, refine it, and better present it the day of the summit. And Deloitte has expressed interest in connecting the winners and finalists of the pitch competition with industry experts in their countries or in their region to help them grow that solution and help them find investment. And two of our winners, so the winner last year and the runner-up last year are actually the winners of the Princess Diana Award. So it really gives you a platform to grow and share your solution. Now, so I know that we are running a bit late, but I just wanted to share really quickly some tips shared by the pitch competition lead, so you can have a better idea on how to better shape your presentation. What are the key things to keep in mind when thinking of the pitch competition? And then if there are any questions, I can answer them.
I don't think we're able to hear the video. Is it just me?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I was wondering, I'd ask IT to check if it was possible, but so there's the subtitle. So I think that what we're gonna do is that I'm just gonna share the video. And so there are subtitles, and so that way you will be able to have all the information because IT wasn't able to fix that issue. So now I'm wondering, is there any questions or comments? Otherwise, I think that's it. I don't know. I've covered everything about the pitch competition and the Youth Summit.
Thanks so much for that, O'Neill. I think because we are running out of time, I'm going to implore anyone who has a comment or a question to please make use of the chat function. And then I think we'll be able to take it from there. Otherwise, I think someone from Belnasa can also share the websites for the Youth Summit to direct anyone who might have an interest in applying, and make sure that you use the weekend to get those applications right, because the closing date is at the end of the week next week. Thank you so much, O'Neill, I think not just for this presentation, but for the work that you are doing to ensure that young people's ideas are given the platform that they deserve and are also given the support and the funding to actually move them forward. So thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you again just before the summit sometime later this year.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Awesome. I think it is 3 minutes to 6 o'clock, and I would really like to conclude our meeting at 6 o'clock like we had promised. So I'm not going to waste any more time, and I'm going to call up a member of the Belnasa Secretariat, Mr. Ephraim Mudise, as well as Ms. Ruth Koenig, who is the operations manager at the World Bank here in Pretoria, just to give a few closing remarks and also make a few acknowledgements before we fully conclude. Ephraim and Ruth, welcome to the stage. You each have a minute to speak. So good luck and welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dimpo, and thank you to my colleague O'Neill. We look forward to the active participation of those joined here today. I'll just quickly do some reflections. I mean, we opened hearing from our country director, Marie-Françoise Marinelli, who always advocates for youth in the room. As she said, the youth will make up about 40% of the growth of the continent in the future. And with this increasing composition, we want to hear your voice because it's important to shape meaningful and evidence-based reforms for a productive and inclusive enabling environment. Let me just reaffirm our commitment as the World Bank of our goal to increase shared prosperity. Our World Bank Group program in our 5 countries has a very targeted approach to responding strategically to governance and policy reform. We promote inclusive approaches to policy reform through our partnerships. We work to strengthen institutions, and we share best practice examples from all our countries around the world. And we bring technical and local expertise to support inclusive and accountable institutions. Having said that, we're always learning, and I think the creation of Belnasa as an avenue to learn, we are very excited to continue that partnership. When I reflect my 3 takeaways, I think I can't, summarize it, but I think for me, one is the importance of not just creating strong policy frameworks, but also implementable ones. And then I think the second was the shared success stories when institutions put forward resources to support the youth's young people's meaningful contribution to reform and to enable intergenerational exchange. And finally, I think is the confidence to speak up and develop disruptive regional approaches needed for youth to learn from each other, to ensure that there's a diverse group of people who are changing the status quo to strong foundation and growth of what the country should be looking like all around the world. And finally, I want to acknowledge the enthusiasm and commitment of Belnasa and its Secretariat, Ephraim, whose continued partnership we definitely appreciate, and who I will now hand over for this closing remarks. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. To start with, I would like to appreciate you, the attendees, for taking time to join us in this discussion, and I would also like to take the time to also really show our appreciation as the Belnasa to the panelists who have really given us a lot to work with. I mean, the amount of the insights that they have provided, we intend to take them and also try to use them to serve our purpose, which is to invite young people from all the member countries to put them in a position where they will be able to contribute towards policies that affect their everyday lives. And to conclude, I would like to remind the attendees that we are currently in the process of recruiting task members to come and join us as the Belnasa to help us to really achieve this mandate. So we have the applications which are open to come and join us either as a task team member or as a forum member. And beyond that, again, we appreciate you guys. We look forward to engaging with you guys as we continue our quest and drive to make this thing a reality. We appreciate your time so much. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ephraim. And I think it's so poetic to have one of the young people who are responsible for the success of this forum, who have been leading it from the beginning, actually be the one to close us off. I actually don't know where to begin with my own acknowledgements and thank yous. This has been so informative. I know that I had the role of MC and moderator, but this has been an incredible learning experience for me as well, someone who does work every day to bolster the participation of young people in important policy and decision-making processes. So thank you so much to each of our panelists, our speakers, to O'Neill, who presented so brilliantly and comprehensively on exactly how you can get involved with the World Bank Youth Summit. I think what I've learned today is that the opportunities for young people to get involved are there. They just require us to be confident, to be bold, and I think to band together and collaborate, I think as all of our speakers had alluded to. We are available on social media platforms, so do connect with the Belnasa Forum and find out what are some of the ways that you could plug into their work. As you heard today, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. The work is being done. We just need young people to collaborate and to extend the reach as well as the impact. From myself, Dimpo Lecheu, I've been live from the World Bank office in Pretoria. The rest of the team, thank you so much for joining us. Have a lovely evening further. Isale kahle.